This is my daughter Alexis at 14 months old. She hadn't had anything worse than an ear infection and a birthmark on her head at this point in her life. She was walking, talking, no different than any other 1-year-old. On April 3rd, 2008, my wife Tiffany and I dropped Alexis off at daycare. Alexis was upset when we left, so she was put in timeout by her babysitter. But Alexis followed her out of the room, so she was put in timeout a second time. Once again, Alexis followed the babysitter out of the room. It was just before she was set down for her third timeout that, according to investigators and doctors, Alexis was shaken and thrown. This is my daughter 72 hours later. She's been in a medically induced coma for 3 days. This is the most critical time in her life. Alexis's brain is at its maximum swelling point. The soft tissue in her brain is being pressed against her skull, permanently destroying parts that can never be recovered. If one part is destroyed, she might be blind for the rest of her life. Another, and she may never be able to eat or drink. It may cause her to never be able to move one side of her body, or to never be able to read or control her emotions. On top of that, it still remains in doubt whether she will even survive, and there is a better chance than not that she will be in this state for the rest of her life. All of this because of a split-second bad decision made by someone who knew better.
Alexis would survive, but not one aspect of her life has been easy since that day.
That's usually what happens. Yeah, when I get the camera.
The assault left her blind, unable to eat or drink, talk, or move her arms and legs. Nearly 3,000 hours of intense, sometimes unbearably painful rehabilitation has allowed some of those deficits to return. But there is no such thing as a full recovery from what is commonly known as shaken baby syndrome or abusive head trauma.
The term shaken baby syndrome, which is used by the lay community very much, is not a very accurate term. Shaken baby syndrome implies that they're all shaken. Many of these children also have impact, and some of them are just impact. But the term abusive head trauma incorporates all of it. It's head trauma. The other problem is baby implies an age, that it's only infants, and we've had toddlers that have been injured. And then my biggest problem is with the word syndrome. When you use the word syndrome, it implies that they're all identical. They may have been shaken up and down, or back and forth, or sideways, or maybe it was 5 times or 10 times. Maybe the perpetrator also slammed him into a bed, or there's so many different things that could have happened, and they all look a little bit different.
Abusive head trauma cases, as serious as Alexis's, number in the thousands every year in the United States. But a study done by the University of North Carolina showed almost 1 in 100 parents of children under 2 admitting that they or their partner have shaken a child. Just by doing the math on shaking alone, the number of children impacted every year is astonishing. And this doesn't even include other types of abusive head trauma, or factor in daycare providers, babysitters, or other caretakers of children. In regards to the extreme cases like Alexis's, the truly frustrating part is looking through news websites or newspapers on any given day, and you'll see this happening again and again. Mothers, fathers, babysitters, grandparents, boyfriends, girlfriends, unable to cope with a baby or a child in a stressful situation, permanently disabling or even killing them.
And it was around the lunch hour, and my phone rang, and it was Scott's number on the caller ID, and he said that Brianna had just called and Chase was unconscious and she couldn't get him awake. I knew instantly it was bad. Like, there's no reason for my baby to be unconscious. He's completely healthy. There's nothing that's ever been wrong with him. Then I didn't get to talk to anybody for quite a while. One of the rescue squad members talked to me on the phone for a little bit and said had already started to resuscitate him, and the life flight was coming, which I already knew because I was at work at the hospital and I heard the helicopter take off, so I knew it was for him. And that was just so hard.
It was late at night, and I received a phone call from Antonio's birth mom that he wasn't breathing and they were taking him to the hospital. She called again as I was driving in, and she was hysterical and said there was something else going on and they wouldn't let her see Antonio. And then she began to unfold that they suspected something else had taken place. Neither his mom or his dad, my son, were doing very well. My son is bipolar and had had a very bad psychotic break about 6 months before and was not taking his medication. With his lack of medication and his instability that night, I still don't know the whole story myself, but he was not at all in a stable place. Yeah, it shook him.
I had gotten a phone call from the daycare provider, and she said that Ethan wasn't acting right and that maybe I should take him into the ER or take him into his family pediatrician. And so I called Ethan's dad and said, Ethan's not acting right, he's sick or something, can you go check it out? I'm on my way home, but I won't be there for another hour. So he went to go check out the situation, and when he arrived, Ethan was laying in a pack and play. He was completely paralyzed on his right side. He was raking his left hand back and forth. His head was facing to the left and he was moaning. The babysitter didn't call 911 at all. My ex-husband, Ethan's dad, had to call 911. They did a CAT scan and saw bleeding and swelling on his brain. The daycare provider initially said that he fell out of a bouncy chair and hit his head. The injuries that were occurring on his brain, the swelling and bleeding, would not be caused from him falling out of a bouncy chair. My naive thought was, he's okay and we'll be bringing him home in a couple days. It was 24 hours later that they confirmed that he had been shaken. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Whether you are years away from having children or a young parent, about to have your second or third child, or a grandparent, a babysitter, or a daycare provider, even a boyfriend, close friend, or relative of someone with a child. This tragedy unfolds daily across our country, most of the time by people who would watch this video and think to themselves that they would never do that to a child. But time and again, these same people cannot overcome an intense moment of stress and make a split-second bad decision that either ends a life or disables a child for a lifetime.
So our plea is this. One day, when you find yourself in the same situation as Ethan or Alexis's daycare provider, Antonio's father, or Chase's babysitter, when a baby or child is not doing what you want or what you think they should do, remember the faces of Antonio, Ethan, Chase, and Alexis. Remember the images of them near death. Remember the images of them struggling with life every single day. Remember the struggles they will carry with them into adulthood. Remember them in that moment and just walk away.
My name is Alexis Verzal. Here are some tips for caring for a baby. Please always remember, no baby has died for crying too much. If somebody calls you frustrated for crying baby, offer you help. Here are some tips to cope with a crying baby. Take deep breaths and count to 10. Say the alphabet. Read an inspirational poem. Take a warm bath or shower. Put the baby in the crib and leave for 10 minutes. Play music that calms you down. Exercise. Call someone to talk. Remind yourself the cry will end. And please never ever shake a baby.
The preceding program is a presentation of the Nebraska Brain Injury Association and is made possible by funding from the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services Division of Public Health, Madonna Rehabilitation Hospital, and Children's Hospital and Medical Center.